Understanding social media behavior can never be complete without understanding human behavior. To borrow the old Marxian paradigm, it is only by understanding the base structure of human behavior in general can we explain the superstructure of social media behavior in particular. There has been various attempts in the past 100 years to explain why and how a human being will behave in a particular way in a particular situation. Various schools has made these attempts, various schools of psychology like the structuralist school, the functionalist school, gestalt school, the behaviorist school, the cognitive school. Psychoanalysis has always been there, and each of these schools has succeeded in varying ways to explain human behavior. Some of these findings are still in vogue. Certain other findings and explanations couldn't stand the test of scientific validation, especially with the arrival of new tools of experimentation and new methodologies. The most important factor that decides the durability as well as acceptance of a particular finding, especially in the realm of human behavior, is its ability to find empirical validation. This is particularly true in the present scenario where empirical validation is accounted to as finding the anatomic correlative behind a particular behavior. The extensive use of tools like the CT scan, the MRI, the fMRI, the EEG, etc., in the realm of neuroscience has actually turned the tide in this direction. In many ways, this is actually psychoanalysis coming full circle because Freud started off his career as a neurologist or a neuroanatomist, later bifurcating into the realm of psychoanalysis, most probably because he was not able to find the tools that we have now to make substantial progress in the realm of neuroanatomy. The rapid strides made by neuroscience in the present times can be attributed in a huge way to the fMRI scans or the advent of the fMRI technology. What makes the fMRI different from other imaging technology is its precision as well as its ability to give specific functional coordinates regarding behavior. Now, this cannot be misunderstood as the fMRI giving which brain area is responsible for this specific behavior. It's not like that. But from a general perspective, fMRI can give a perspective about which brain areas are most functional during a particular cognitive task or during a particular emotional response or during a particular behavioral activity. The findings from by neuroscience is particularly important in the realm of social media behavior because it can give specific insights into every human being's cognitive as well as affective response to a particular stimuli. Once we know the cognitive as well as the affective roots of a particular behavior and the anatomic correlates behind it, then it will be very easy to regulate our own behavior. And regulation of behavior is one supreme factor that could be the difference between whether we could use social media as a tool to our advantage or whether we end up being used as a tool in social media. For example, studies have shown that when exposed to an aggressive face, the normal human response from the perspective of anatomy is that the amygdala activates. The amygdala is a part of the brain which is primarily responsible for primal emotions, emotions like fear, anger, etc. The same holds true for images of people from another race. So when a human being is exposed to an image of a person from another race, his amygdala activates. And naturally, the corollary is that from a behavioral perspective, the emotions that are most likely to be triggered are fear and anger. And this can mean many things in a social media platform, especially because the exposure to images of varying degree and the possibilities of manipulation by such exposure is multifaceted. In one neuroimaging study concerning sexual motivation, it was seen that when the participants were exposed to images of young attractive women, the activation of the brain showed a correspondence to the normal brain circuitry associated with reward processing. However, with a slight twist in the experiment, that is, when the participants were asked to work to see these images, like pulling a lever or pressing a button or something like that, There has been a drastic change in the way the brain processes the images. In the first scenario, it was normal activation, but in the second scenario, there has been an increased activation of amygdala, which clearly indicates that the way the brain processes information when there is uncertainty in attaining a reward is totally different. This has clear cut repercussions in the social media scenario where sexual motivation is used as a hidden bait to maintain user participation as well as to increase user participation. Working to get a reward in a social media platform can mean many things. It can mean trying to increase the number of likes, trying to increase the number of comments, or trying to increase the number of followers. And all these things directly equate to the amount of time spent in social media platform and the effort spent in social media platforms. This is exactly what the capitalistic narrative hidden within it wants us to do, because the more the time spent by the users and the more the effort spent by the users in a platform directly increases its social media capital. This doesn't mean that every user is completely susceptible to the narrative set forth by social media. Neuroscience has clearly shown that every human behavior is a result of an interaction between the cognitive component and the affective component. The cognitive component is basically controlled by the frontal cortex, while the affective component is basically controlled by the amygdala. So what this means in this present context of social media is that even if a user experiences a spontaneous outburst of emotion as a result of an overactivated or agitated amygdala, he can still reappraise the situation using the cognitive component or the frontal cortex and bring forth a more measured response to the particular stimuli without being highly reactive to the stimulus. Empowering users with proper reappraisal strategies should be one of the primary objectives of media literacy, because this can go a long way in arresting most of the negative trends in social media usage, be it social media bullying or spread of false news, propaganda, or even social media addiction as such. Applying reappraisal strategies to regulate social media behavior might not work in all cases. For example, in the case of adolescents, it has been neurologically proved that the adolescent brain is not fully developed. The human brain attains full maturity only by the age of 25. The adolescent frontal cortex, which is the center of the brain responsible for higher decision making and rational decisions, is not yet completely developed and is still a work in progress. So, in adolescence, we have a strange mix of a person with certain cognitive skills intact but without the necessary emotional maturity and the necessary mechanisms for emotional regulation. And across cultures, it has been clearly proved that the adolescents are highly susceptible to certain behavioral traits due to this lack of emotional regulation. Emotional traits like higher risk taking, higher susceptibility to peer pressure, higher propensity for novelty seeking and sensation seeking, etc. Another arena where the reappraisal strategies don't work is in the realm of neuromarketing. Neuromarketing involves the use of the tools of neuroscience for marketing purposes. It can involve scientific findings in neuroscience or brain imaging technologies or other technologies to understand the human brain and using it to know customer preferences, whether it be customer responses towards particular marketing strategies or customer responses towards particular products. And this is in many ways a dangerous terrain, because neuromarketing can give insights about a particular customer which he himself is not aware about. Earlier we have discussed about amygdala activation, how amygdala could be activated by a millisecond exposure to a particular stimulus, mostly images of aggressive people or images from other people or images of other race, which can actually bypass conscious perception of the frontal cortex. Bypassing the rational defense of a user and manipulating customer behavior is something that would be considered as a breach of fundamental rights of the individual. So, from the perspective of media literacy, such issues cannot be easily tackled just by designing reappraisal strategies. And this is where neurolaw becomes relevant. So, the need of the hour is empowerment through awareness on an individual level and empowerment through enforcement on a social level. And this can be achieved by using the insights of neurolaw. Neurolaw is the intersection between neuroscience and law, Presently, it is used in a very limited way in certain legal proceedings. However, the insights provided by neurolaw can be a strengthening tool in the perspective of media literacy, and a combined approach using the perspectives of media literacy as well as neurolaw can go a long way in framing specific policies which can help in protecting user rights as well as in keeping a check on dubious business practices in social media.